Imagine waking up one morning to discover that your smartphone costs twice as much as it did yesterday. Cars become more expensive. Food prices begin to rise. Factories slow down. Thousands of workers lose their jobs. And governments around the world start blaming each other. This isn't science fiction. This is the world that is slowly emerging today. For nearly 3 decades, globalization promised something extraordinary. Countries would trade freely. Companies would manufacture wherever production was cheapest. Consumers would enjoy lower prices. The world would become more connected than ever before. For many years, this system appeared to work. Factories in China supplied products to Europe. American technology companies designed products that were assembled across Asia. Raw materials crossed continents before becoming finished products. Global supply chains became so efficient that a single smartphone could contain components made in more than 40 countries. Economists believed that free trade would reduce poverty, increase prosperity, and even lower the chances of war. The world became one giant marketplace. But today, something is changing. Governments are no longer asking only one question: where can we buy this product most cheaply? Instead, they are asking something far more important. What happens if we can no longer buy it at all? This single question has completely transformed global economic thinking. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed dangerous weaknesses in international supply chains. The Russia-Ukraine war demonstrated how energy could become a geopolitical weapon. Growing tensions between the United States and China revealed how technology itself had become a strategic battlefield. Semiconductors, artificial intelligence, rare earth minerals, electric vehicle batteries, critical medicines, food security. These are no longer just business sectors. They have become matters of national security. Governments are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to bring factories back home. Countries are imposing new tariffs on imports. Strategic industries are receiving massive government subsidies. Foreign investments are facing stricter scrutiny. Trade agreements are being reconsidered. The age of globalization is not ending overnight, but it is undeniably changing. A new economic philosophy is taking shape. Economists call it the new economic nationalism. Unlike the economic nationalism of the 20th century, this new version is far more sophisticated. Countries are not completely closing their borders. Instead, they are carefully choosing which industries must remain under national control. The objective is no longer simply economic growth, it is economic resilience, economic security, strategic independence, and geopolitical power. This transformation is already reshaping the global economy.
It is changing where products are manufactured. It is changing investment flows. It is changing technological competition. It is even changing military strategy. The consequences will affect every country, every business, and every consumer. Whether you live in New York, Berlin, Mumbai, Tokyo, São Paulo, or Nairobi, the new economic nationalism will influence the prices you pay, the jobs available in your country, and the technologies that shape your future. But how did the world reach this point? Why are governments abandoning decades of free market thinking? What exactly is economic nationalism? Who benefits from it? Who loses? And could this new economic competition eventually reshape global power itself? Today, we explore one of the most important economic transformations of the 21st century. This is the story of the new economic nationalism.
From globalization to economic nationalism, to understand why the world is embracing economic nationalism once again, we first need to go back in time, not to the 21st century, but to the end of the Second World War. In 1945, much of the world was in ruins. Europe's industries had been devastated. Japan's economy had collapsed. International trade had nearly stopped. World leaders believed that economic instability had contributed to global conflict. If countries remained isolated and competed aggressively for resources, another world war could become inevitable. So they chose a different path. Instead of building economic walls, they decided to build economic bridges. New international institutions were created to encourage cooperation and reduce trade barriers. Over the following decades, tariffs gradually declined. Trade agreements expanded. Transportation became cheaper. Container shipping revolutionized global commerce. The invention of the internet accelerated international business even further. By the 1990s, globalization had become the dominant economic model. Companies realized they no longer needed to manufacture everything in one country. Instead, production could be divided across the world. A product could be designed in California, its microchips manufactured in Taiwan, its display produced in South Korea, its battery assembled in China, its software developed in India, and finally shipped to customers in Europe. This system dramatically reduced production costs. Consumers enjoyed cheaper products. Businesses earned higher profits. Developing countries attracted foreign investment. Millions of people escaped poverty as manufacturing expanded across Asia. For years, globalization appeared to be one of the greatest economic success stories in modern history. But beneath this success, a hidden weakness was quietly growing. The global economy had become incredibly efficient, yet increasingly fragile. Companies focused almost entirely on reducing costs. Factories concentrated production in only a few countries. Critical components often came from a single supplier. Supply chains stretched across thousands of kilometers. Everything worked perfectly. As long as nothing went wrong, then something did. In early 2020, COVID-19 spread rapidly across the globe. Factories shut down. Ports became congested. Cargo ships remained stranded. Air transportation slowed dramatically. Within weeks, supply chains that had taken decades to build began breaking apart. Hospitals struggled to obtain basic medical equipment. Many countries discovered they could not produce enough masks or protective clothing. The shortage extended far beyond healthcare. Automobile manufacturers lacked semiconductors. Electronics companies delayed product launches. Construction projects slowed due to shortages of essential materials. Even supermarket shelves in many countries became temporarily empty. Consumers who had always assumed products would be available suddenly experienced a different reality. Governments realized something even more alarming. Many essential products were no longer manufactured domestically. They depended heavily on foreign suppliers. If another global crisis occurred, would those supplies still arrive? For policymakers, this became a national security question, not just an economic one. Then, before global supply chains had fully recovered, another shock arrived. In 2022, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The conflict demonstrated how economic dependence could become a strategic vulnerability. Europe had relied heavily on Russian natural gas for decades. When those supplies were disrupted, energy prices surged. Electricity became more expensive. Industries faced rising production costs. Households struggled with higher utility bills. The lesson was impossible to ignore. Dependence on a single supplier, even for economic reasons, could become a geopolitical risk. At the same time, competition between the United States and China intensified. The rivalry was no longer limited to trade. It expanded into technology. Artificial intelligence, semiconductors, quantum computing, telecommunications, cybersecurity, critical minerals. Each breakthrough carried not only economic value but also strategic importance. Governments increasingly viewed advanced technology as essential to national power. This marked a historic turning point. Efficiency was no longer the only priority. Resilience became equally important. Countries began asking difficult questions. Should critical medicines be produced overseas? Should advanced computer chips depend on foreign factories? Should energy security rely on geopolitical rivals? Should strategic minerals come from only one region of the world? The answers were changing. Instead of maximizing globalization at any cost, governments started pursuing a new balance. International trade would continue, but certain industries would receive special protection. Domestic manufacturing would be encouraged. Strategic investments would be supported through government subsidies. Supply chains would become more diversified. Businesses called it de-risking. Governments called it economic security. Economists gave it a broader name: the new economic nationalism. This new philosophy does not reject globalization entirely. Instead, it reshapes globalization around one central principle: national security can no longer be separated from economic policy. And that single idea is now transforming the global economy faster than almost anyone expected. The new economic battlefield: the United States versus China. For decades, the United States and China benefited from one of the largest economic relationships in modern history. American companies invested billions of dollars in Chinese factories. Chinese manufacturers produced affordable goods for consumers around the world. Trade between the two countries reached hundreds of billions of dollars every year. At one point, many economists believed that deep economic integration would reduce geopolitical tensions. The logic seemed simple. Countries that depend heavily on each other economically have more to lose from conflict. But history took a different path. As China's economy expanded rapidly, so did its technological ambitions. The country was no longer satisfied with being known only as the world's factory. Its goal became much bigger: to become a global leader in advanced technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, electric vehicles, quantum computing, biotechnology, aerospace, and perhaps most importantly, semiconductors. These tiny computer chips power nearly everything around us: smartphones, laptops, medical equipment, cars, military systems, satellites, modern banking. Artificial intelligence. Without semiconductors, the digital world simply cannot function. Whoever leads in chip technology gains an enormous strategic advantage. This is why semiconductors have become one of the most valuable resources of the 21st century. Today, only a small number of companies possess the ability to manufacture the world's most advanced chips. Many of these facilities are concentrated in East Asia. That concentration creates both economic efficiency and strategic risk. Governments now worry about a simple but critical question: what happens if access to these chips is suddenly interrupted? The answer could affect everything from national defense to economic growth. As concerns increased, economic competition between Washington and Beijing intensified. The United States introduced export controls on certain advanced semiconductor technologies. Restrictions expanded to include high-end chip manufacturing equipment and selected artificial intelligence technologies. The objective was not to stop all trade. Instead, policymakers argued that the most advanced technologies should not strengthen potential military competitors. China responded by accelerating its own technological development. Billions of dollars were invested in domestic semiconductor manufacturing. Research funding increased. Universities expanded engineering programs. Technology companies received greater government support. The message was clear: China wanted to reduce its dependence on foreign technology. At the same time, another strategic competition was quietly unfolding beneath the surface: rare earth minerals. Despite their name, many of these minerals are not extremely rare. However, refining and processing them requires specialized industrial capabilities. These materials are essential for electric vehicles, wind turbines, missile guidance systems, advanced electronics, laser technology, and countless other high-tech industries. For years, global supply chains relied heavily on Chinese processing capacity. This dependence created another strategic concern. If geopolitical tensions increased, access to these critical materials could become uncertain. As a result, countries across North America, Europe, Australia, India, and other regions began searching for alternative suppliers. New mining projects were announced. Strategic partnerships were formed. Governments invested in domestic refining capacity. Supply chain diversification became a national priority. This shift represents one of the defining characteristics of new economic nationalism. Countries are no longer asking only where products can be produced at the lowest cost. They are asking where products can be produced most securely. This same thinking now extends far beyond semiconductors and minerals. Electric vehicle batteries, biomanics, pharmaceutical ingredients, telecommunications infrastructure, cloud computing, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, space technology. Every one of these industries is increasingly viewed through the lens of national security. Governments have also begun using industrial policy more aggressively than at any point in recent decades. Massive public investments are supporting strategic industries. Companies receive incentives to build factories at home. Research institutions receive funding to develop next-generation technologies. Foreign acquisitions in sensitive sectors face greater scrutiny. Economic policy is becoming inseparable from strategic policy. Some experts describe this transformation as a new kind of global competition, not a traditional military conflict, not a complete economic separation, but a race for technological leadership. A race to control the industries that will define the future. Artificial intelligence may determine productivity. Semiconductors may determine technological superiority. Critical minerals may determine manufacturing strength. Energy technology may determine long-term competitiveness. The countries that lead in these sectors will possess not only stronger economies, but also greater geopolitical influence. This is why today's competition is about much more than profits. It is about power, and unlike previous economic rivalries, governments are no longer leaving these decisions entirely to the market. They are actively shaping the future of their economies. For supporters, this strategy promises greater resilience, stronger domestic industries, and improved national security. For critics, however, it raises difficult questions. Will protectionism increase prices? Will global innovation slow down? Could economic rivalry eventually divide the world into competing technological blocks? Those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is already clear. The global economy is entering a new era. An era where economic policy has become a strategic weapon and where the competition for technological leadership may shape international politics for decades to come. How the rest of the world is responding. The rise of new economic nationalism is not only changing the relationship between the United States and China, it is reshaping the strategies of governments across the world. From Europe to Asia, from North America to the Indo-Pacific, countries are rethinking where they manufacture, where they invest, and whom they depend upon. The goal is no longer just economic growth. It is economic resilience. One phrase now appears frequently in government reports and business boardrooms: don't put all your eggs in one basket. For decades, many multinational companies concentrated a large share of their manufacturing in one country because it reduced costs. But recent global disruptions exposed the risks of relying too heavily on a single location. As a result, businesses and governments began redesigning their supply chains. 3 new strategies quickly became popular. The first is reshoring. Reshoring means bringing factories and production back to the home country. Governments believe that producing critical goods domestically reduces dependence on foreign suppliers and creates high-quality jobs. The second strategy is nearshoring. Instead of manufacturing on the other side of the world, companies move production to nearby countries. Shorter transportation routes reduce costs, improve delivery times, and make supply chains more reliable. This trend has benefited countries located close to major consumer markets. The third strategy is friendshoring. Rather than choosing suppliers based only on cost, countries increasingly prefer trading with trusted partners that share similar strategic interests. The idea is simple. Supply chains are more secure when they are built among reliable allies. These 3 strategies are quietly changing the geography of global manufacturing. One of the biggest beneficiaries has been India. Over the past several years, India has invested heavily in manufacturing, digital infrastructure, logistics, and industrial development. Programs designed to encourage domestic production have attracted investment in electronics, mobile phones, renewable energy, and semiconductor-related industries. Global companies are expanding their presence in India, not only because of its large market, but also because they want to diversify production beyond a single country. India's young workforce, growing infrastructure, and expanding digital economy make it an increasingly important player in the global supply chain. However, challenges remain: improving logistics, reducing regulatory complexity, expanding advanced manufacturing skills, strengthening transportation networks. These factors will determine how much India benefits from this historic economic shift. Meanwhile, Vietnam has become another major manufacturing hub. Electronics companies have expanded production there. Exports have grown rapidly. The country's integration into international supply chains has accelerated significantly. Mexico has also gained attention. Its proximity to the United States makes it an attractive destination for companies pursuing nearshoring. Shorter delivery times, lower transportation costs, and closer access to the North American market. These advantages have increased foreign investment in Mexican manufacturing. Across Southeast Asia, countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand are also competing to attract new factories. Governments are offering incentives, improving infrastructure, and promoting industrial investment. At the same time, Europe has launched its own strategy. European leaders continue to support open trade, but they also recognize the importance of reducing dependence in strategic sectors. Large investments are being directed toward clean energy, semiconductor production, battery manufacturing, and advanced technology. Energy security has become an especially important priority following recent geopolitical disruptions. Japan and South Korea have adopted similar approaches. Both countries remain deeply connected to international trade, yet both are investing heavily in technological leadership, supply chain resilience, and advanced manufacturing. The common message across all these economies is remarkably similar. Globalization is not disappearing, it is evolving. Instead of one highly concentrated global production network, businesses are creating multiple regional supply chains. Instead of maximizing efficiency alone, they are balancing efficiency with security. This transformation represents one of the largest reorganizations of the global economy in decades. Factories are moving, investment is shifting, trade routes are changing, new industrial partnerships are emerging. Some countries are likely to gain enormous opportunities. Others may struggle to adapt. For developing economies, this moment could become a once-in-a-generation opportunity to attract investment, create jobs, and strengthen industrial capabilities. But success will depend on more than low labor costs. Countries must provide stable policies, reliable infrastructure, skilled workers, efficient institutions, and long-term economic planning. The competition is no longer only between companies. It is increasingly a competition between national economic strategies. Governments are competing to become the most attractive destination for investment. Businesses are competing to build the most resilient supply chains. And nations are competing to secure their place in the industries of the future. The map of global manufacturing is being redrawn, not through a single dramatic event, but through thousands of strategic decisions made every day by governments, investors, and businesses around the world. The era of globalization is not over, but the rules that shaped globalization for the last 30 years are changing. And the countries that adapt fastest may become the economic leaders of the next generation, the future of the global economy. As the world moves deeper into the era of new economic nationalism, one important question remains. Who will benefit from this transformation, and who will pay the price? The answer is not simple. For governments, the benefits appear clear. Producing more critical goods at home can strengthen national security. Diversified supply chains can reduce the risk of future disruptions. Strategic industries may create new jobs, attract investment, and accelerate innovation. Countries that successfully develop advanced technologies could gain enormous economic and geopolitical influence. But there's another side to the story. Building factories closer to home often costs more than producing goods in the lowest cost locations. Higher production costs can lead to higher prices for consumers. Governments may spend hundreds of billions of dollars on subsidies to support domestic industries. Taxpayers ultimately bear part of that cost. Businesses also face difficult choices. For decades, efficiency was the primary goal. Now resilience has become just as important. Companies are maintaining multiple suppliers instead of relying on one. They are investing in regional production networks. They are redesigning logistics systems to prepare for future crises. These changes improve security, but they also increase costs. Consumers may eventually notice those costs in the prices of everyday products, from electronics and automobiles to household appliances and renewable energy technologies. Some economists worry that if countries become too protectionist, global trade could slow down. Competition might decrease. Innovation could become less efficient. Economic growth could weaken. Others argue the opposite. They believe a more diversified global economy will be stronger in the long run. Instead of depending on one manufacturing hub or one supplier, production will be distributed across many trusted partners. That could reduce the impact of future crises. The debate continues, and there are no easy answers. One thing, however, is becoming increasingly clear. The next decade will be defined by strategic industries, artificial intelligence, advanced semiconductors, quantum computing, biotechnology, renewable energy, space technology, cybersecurity, critical minerals. These sectors will shape not only economic prosperity, but also national influence. The countries that lead these industries may define the balance of global power for decades. The competition is no longer just about GDP. It is about technological leadership, innovation, resilience, and strategic independence. This is why governments are investing at levels rarely seen in modern economic history. Economic policy is no longer separate from foreign policy. Trade is no longer separate from national security. Technology is no longer separate from geopolitics. They have become deeply connected. So, is globalization ending? Probably not. International trade remains essential. No country can produce everything it needs. Global cooperation will continue in finance, science, healthcare, climate technology, and many other fields, but the form of globalization is changing. Instead of one deeply interconnected system built almost entirely around efficiency, the world is moving toward a more fragmented and strategically organized global economy. Some experts describe this future as Globalization 2.0. Trade will continue. Investment will continue. Innovation will continue. But governments will play a much larger role in deciding where critical industries are built, who owns them, and which technologies can be shared. The invisible hand of the market is no longer acting alone. The visible hand of the state has returned. Looking ahead to 2035 and beyond, several possible futures emerge. In one scenario, countries successfully balance economic security with international cooperation. Supply chains become more resilient. Innovation continues. Global prosperity expands. In another scenario, economic rivalry intensifies. Trade barriers increase. Technology ecosystems become divided. Businesses face higher costs. Consumers pay more. And geopolitical tensions become even more difficult to manage. Which future becomes reality will depend on the choices made by governments, businesses, and societies over the coming years. History teaches us that every major transformation creates both opportunities and challenges. The Industrial Revolution changed the world. The Digital Revolution changed the world. Now, the new economic nationalism may become the next great turning point. It is already influencing the products we buy, the jobs we create, the technologies we develop, and the relationships between nations. The headlines we read today about tariffs, semiconductors, AI, critical minerals, and supply chains are not isolated events. They are all chapters of the same larger story, a story about how nations are redefining economic power in the 21st century. Whether this new era brings greater stability or greater competition remains uncertain. But one fact is undeniable. The rules of the global economy are being rewritten, and the decisions made today will shape the world that future generations inherit. The age of globalization built one world. The age of new economic nationalism is now building the next. The question is no longer whether the global economy is changing. The question is, who will adapt first, and who will be left behind? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more in-depth fact-based stories on geopolitics, economics, and the forces shaping our world, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because understanding the world is the first step toward understanding the future.